The long wave of rumors, theories, and debates has finally reached its most unique point. Not because there are new facts, but because the public is starting to feel like the story is over. Whereas if pulled to the beginning, there has never been a single official confirmation that actually builds the story from the beginning. The names of Moon Jae-young, Cha Eun-woo, and Kim Do-young were once in the limelight, not because of a recent joint project, but because of a narrative slowly shaped by fandom and social media. It all starts with D's strong chemistry, then develops into relationship speculation, coupled with the re-emergence of old issues like taxes that drag Cha Eun-woo's name into the public spotlight. From there, the story continues to grow. Old content was relifted, video snippets were analyzed, and netizens' comments began to compose their own grooves. Without realizing it, the public creates a complete story. There is a beginning, a conflict, until the climax in the form of a fandom split between Cha Eun-woo and Kim Do-young supporters. It all feels real, as if there really is a relationship going on behind the scenes. But on closer inspection, the foundation of the story turned out to be fragile. There is no evidence of a romantic relationship, no direct link between Moon Jae-young and the tax issue, and no official statements from the three parties. All there is a repetition of the same narrative until it feels like the truth. This phenomenon shows how the digital age works today. When a topic keeps coming up in one context, the public's brain will automatically connect to it. Algorithms amplify it, fandom spreads it, and eventually what's called a closure illusion is formed. A feeling that the story is finished, when it never really started. Interestingly, although the debate began to subside, the effect did not disappear. Moon Jae-young's name will still be associated with the two figures. Cha Eun-woo still carries the shadow of old rumors despite being drafted into the army, and Kim Do-young remains part of the discussion as the other option version of the fans. All this happens without a single real certainty. In the end, what remains is not fact, but perception. A story that feels complete, emotional, and convincing, even though it's built from pieces that were never really officially connected. Fire, and therein lies the paradox. The story feels clearly ended. Collision, although in fact it never really started. Fire continued. After closure effect. When the story of Moon Jae-young, Cha Eun-woo, and Kim Do-young continues to live after the end, fire. Although many feel that this story is over, it is precisely here that a more subtle but dangerous phase begins. The public is no longer arguing as loudly as before, but the story has not completely disappeared, it has changed its form. Unknowingly, the public has moved from the truth-seeking phase to the phase of accepting stories as part of fandom memory. This effect is all the more powerful because the algorithm doesn't actually forget. Old content keeps spinning, resurfacing at unexpected times, and each of those occurrences reinforces the impression that the story has a real basis. In fact, as has been repeatedly emphasized, there has never been confirmation of the relationship, there is no direct connection with tax issues, and there are no official statements from the relevant parties. But what makes this situation interesting is how the public is beginning to fill the void on their own. Since there was no final explanation of the artists, the audience created their final version. There are those who choose to believe in the old chemistry between Moon Jae-young and Cha Eun-woo. There are also those who consider the new direction more suitable if associated with Kim Do-young. And at this point, the facts become less important than the narrative that feels most emotionally satisfying. The impact does not stop there. In the future, any new project of Moon Jae-young will almost certainly be compared with the shadow of the past. Cha Eun-woo's name will still appear in discussions, even when he is inactive due to military service, while Kim Do-young will continue to be referred to as an alternative in fandom conversations, albeit without any real context. What remains now is a unique phenomenon, except when it turns into something that continues to be remembered without the need to prove it again. Fire continued last. Perception lock phase. When the stories of Moon Jae-young, Cha Eun-woo, and Kim Do-young lock in the public mind. Fire. After going through the after-closure effect phase, this story no longer develops. Instead, it settles and locks itself in public perception. Here is the quietest, but most powerful stage, perception lock phase. In this phase, people no longer look for evidence, no longer debate details. They have already decided for themselves what they believe. For some, Moon Jae-young will always be associated with past chemistry with Cha Eun-woo. For others, the new narrative with Kim Do-young feels more plausible. And interestingly, the two beliefs can coexist without ever actually being retested. This phenomenon occurs because stories that were previously viral have passed one important stage: repetition without resistance. When there are no new clarifications, no refutations, and no additional facts, the established narrative becomes the default version in the public mind. Whenever footage of True Beauty reappears, it is no longer seen as merely a drama scene. He became an emotional reminder of the story that was once believed. And it's the emotions, not the facts, that keep him going. What makes this phase even stronger is the way the public remembers. They don't keep the whole detail, just the core of the story. Chemistry. There are rumors. There is a fandom split. The rest is filled with imagination. As a result, the simple reality, that there is no confirmed link and no link in the tax issue, is slowly sinking under a layer of hardened perception. This story no longer needs proof, because it already feels quite real to many. In the long run, this creates an effect that is difficult to remove. Each new appearance of Moon Jae-young will bring a shadow of the past. Cha Eun-woo's name will continue to appear as part of the old narrative, even without his direct involvement. And Kim Do-young will remain part of the discussion as a representation of the alternative direction that some fans once wanted. Fire. At this point, one thing becomes very clear. Collision. This story is no longer live on the internet. He has moved on and settled in the public mind. And when a story has gotten to that stage, backhand index pointing right, he does not need to be true to continue to be believed. Fire. Absolute cover. Permanent narrative phase. When Moon Jae-young, Cha Eun-woo, and Kim Do-young's story becomes a permanent narrative. Fire. At this very point, the story no longer moves, no longer changes, and no longer needs new impulses. It goes into the most stable stage as well as the most difficult to remove, permanent narrative phase. What was once just a rumor has now turned into a permanent reference in the memory of the fandom. Every time Moon Jae-young's name is mentioned, a part of the public will automatically remember the two directions of the story, the past with Cha Eun-woo and possible alternatives with Kim Do-young. Without the need to explain again, without the need to prove again, the narrative has stuck. This phenomenon occurs because the story has gone through all the important stages. Viral, debate, indirect clarification, up to constant repetition. When a story lasts long enough in the public sphere, it no longer relies on facts, but rather on the habit of remembering them. Each piece of the scene from True Beauty that reappears is not only entertainment, but also serves as a memory trigger. In a matter of seconds, the entire old narrative can be back in the audience's mind, complete with the emotions that once accompanied it. Fire Absolute End. Infinite loop phase when the story of Moon Jae-young, Cha Eun-woo and Kim Do-young never really ends. Fire. At this point, the story has gone through all phases, viral, conflict, pseudo-clarification, until it becomes canon. But instead of being completely finished, it enters its most unique final stage, the infinite loop phase. It is a condition in which the story no longer moves forward, but rotates. Every few times, the same pattern will occur again. Cut from True Beauty goes viral. Cha Eun-woo's name again linked to Moon Jae-young. The old discussion about Kim Do-young comes up again as an alternative. And the fandom again repeated the same conversation. Backhand index pointing right as if this story came to life, when it never really left. What changes is generation of fans, delivery method, and the platform on which the story appeared. But the essence remains the same. This phenomenon occurs because the story already has all the elements needed to survive. Emotions, chemistry, and expectations of fans. Conflict, differences in fandom choices. Mystery, no clear confirmation. Backhand index pointing right, this combination makes the story never lose its appeal. Interestingly, every time this story reappears, it does not start from scratch. He immediately appears in a ready-made version with a pre-formed narrative. New fans will think this is a new story when it is just a repetition of the old cycle. And here lies its uniqueness. Collision: this story has no end because it can always be started again. In the meantime, reality keeps going on its own course. Moon Jae-young continues career. Cha Eun-woo goes through phases of his life, including enlistment. Kim Do-young focuses on her activities, without ever really getting tied up in the big story that the public builds. But in the world of fandom, this story already has a life of its own. The final conclusion of all. Backhand index pointing right, this is no longer a rumor. It's no longer a theory. Backhand index pointing right, it's not even a story anymore. Collision, it is a cycle that will keep repeating. The most complete sentence. The digital age. Backhand index pointing right story does not end. It's just waiting to be retold. Fire Ultra Final. Cultural memory phase when Moon Jae-young, Cha Eun-woo and Kim Do-young stories become part of fandom's cultural memory fire. If earlier this story spun in an infinite loop, now it has reached its most stable and most widespread form, becoming part of cultural memory. That is, this story no longer belongs to one small fandom. It has already passed into a larger collective memory within the world of K-entertainment. At this stage, the story no longer needs to be viral to remain. It lives in a more subtle form, called at a glance in the discussion, as an example of the legendary chemistry of True Beauty, or appear as a reference when discussing another artist's partner. Backhand index pointing right without realizing it. This story has become a reference. Moon Jae-young's name will always carry an extra layer in the public's memory, not just as an actress, but also as the centerpiece of a once great narrative. So is Cha Eun-woo, who remains remembered through strong chemistry, and Kim Do-young as part of a fandom split that was heating up. This phenomenon suggests that in modern digital culture,